the founders of Supra. And guys, let's hand it first to Joshua. Joshua, do you want to do a quick introduction, who you are, what you're doing within Supra? Nobody needs to ask that, but give us a quick introduction, who you are, what you're doing, and what is the best thing about Supra in your experience thus far?
Yeah, James and Sandra, thank you for the introduction. Am I coming through clearly? My audio is okay.
Yeah, super.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Josh here, co-founder, CEO of Supra. Been in the blockchain industry full time for about 7 years. Of course, just like many of you folks, when you first heard about Ethereum, if you're technical, you're probably thinking that this is the worst database I've ever seen. My background was in SaaS, software as a service. I was working in San Francisco at the time, and I got introduced to Ethereum, and I was like, I don't understand it. I don't understand why you do this. And eventually, however, my friends were basically continuing to say, Josh, about Bitcoin, you should look into Ethereum. And I hate to say it, but the truth of the matter was that this notion of token economics was really brand new to me. And this notion of having value in a digital format that's non-sovereign was revolutionary. And I admit that I didn't see it immediately. However, when a good friend of mine showed me her wallet and she said this was 10K before, but now it's like over 100,000, I was like, okay, I will take a look at this again. And this was back in San Francisco, 2017, maybe January, February. And at that stage, I still didn't really get it, but I knew that there had to be something here. You can imagine my background as building a SaaS product. Actually, I was building an all-in-one. At the time, it was for the healthcare industry. It was for doctors, for coaches, for health coaches and nurses and veterinarians. And basically, it was a single place to do everything. So it was very natural for me to be thinking about vertical integration. We're talking about website builder, drag and drop website builder, appointment software, note-taking software, invites, Zoom integration. Back then, Zoom was pretty new in 2017 and beyond. And I was like, it was very important to me to have a single place where you can do, we described it as a business in a box for these practitioners. And when you're in that world, you're focused on centralizing everything, low latency, high performance, single place to do everything. But then I learned about this new paradigm called Ethereum blockchain, and it didn't make sense to me. And people were using all these fancy words like protocol. I remember so naively attending kind of these crypto meetups in San Francisco, bashfully asking, when you say protocol, what do you mean by that? And they graciously explained to me, oh, it's just a sequence of rules or an algorithm. I was like, oh, okay, I got that. Long story short, I didn't understand this technology. It clicked for me eventually. And this healthcare startup, it was called Wholesome.io. Wholesome wasn't my first startup. It was actually maybe, I don't know, like my 10th attempt. I did have one startup that I was successful in the online gaming space. It was online poker. It was our affiliate program. It's called Rakeback. We were maybe the 12th largest in the world. I started that when I was 22, geez, like already 17 years ago. And that actually worked. And that was a time where online poker was legal in the United States. And what we were doing is we were having these incentives for these players saying, hey, listen, hey, Poker Stars, Full Tilt Poker, Carbon Poker, Paradise Poker, all these different organizations. We have garnered a set of players that are active players, and we can bring them to your site, but we want half of the revenue. They would do it. We'd negotiate it, we'd get half the revenue, and then we'd give back the player the other difference. Now that's that in the online poker world, that is rake. So every game handed poker, the house takes a little bit of rake. We would get half of it and give the players between 80 to 95% of that, and the difference with our margin. So we were kids. I was 22. My co-founder at the time, I was like 17 years old, right? He was playing high stakes poker on his mother's account during his lunch break in high school, playing high stakes that even to this day I've never played. But he was a prodigy. Bottom line is, when I reflected on my experience back then, because I remember we were growing and we eventually became like top 12 in the world, even though we were kids. I started complaining to my partner. I said, listen, these guys are ripping us off. Because like I could see our user growth, but our metrics and our revenue and the payout was not consistent. And I used to complain all the time to him out of frustration. I'm like, this doesn't make sense, right? These numbers are wrong, but I couldn't prove anything because there was no transparency. They literally just, hey, this is it, and this is where you get paid, and we couldn't refute anything. So once I reflected upon that and understanding, a distributed database that is fault tolerant, okay, I see. There actually are many use cases where this is relevant. So that's my kind of high level introduction to the industry. By like suppose are important is that in 2017, I did actually put my SaaS product onto automation. I still to this day don't do any day-to-day activity. It does exist and it's break even somehow, even after 7 years. But which is great because you have to focus on product market fit and make sure that you have something that people want. That was a lot of training for me. Nonetheless, I did put that on automation. I went all in blockchain. Did consulting work for other companies, and I had tech in San Francisco and New York City. And while that was happening, I basically put my time and attention into trying to understand these white papers, these protocols, these the new projects. I created the Bitcoin White Paper Club in the Bay Area. Bitcoin White Paper Club was a small group. Some of those founders of that group, or rather some of those folks that joined that Bitcoin White Paper Club, ended up becoming massive protocol builders. You would know who they are. I won't say right now, but it was really amazing to see. It was like a cradle. San Francisco was a cradle for many, especially in the 2017 era, of many projects and folks that ended up creating great success and innovations in this industry. By 2017 November, after reading stacks and stacks of white papers, and you got to understand, I barely understood this stuff. I just had to grind through it line by line, like literally with my finger because it's so complex. And at that stage, I just had this inspiration that ultimately became the foundation of the early ideas behind Supra. That said, I got introduced to John Jones through a mutual friend of mine, Alex Ward. Alex Ward and I went to boarding school back in the day, and he happened to know John from New York. I never met John before, but I brought Alex into the Bay Area White Paper Club, and he said, dude, Josh, you got to meet this guy, John. He connects us. We meet in San Francisco 2018. And John, why don't you jump in from here and talk about your story, your background, how we met and how we ended up creating our labs and how we got here.
Yeah, totally. Hi, everyone. John here, co-founder of Supra. This is exciting. My intro to blockchain was back when I was studying at Berkeley. And my roommate, I was playing a video game at the time. My roommate came up to me and said, hey, John, have you heard about Bitcoin? It went from a couple cents to like $1. And I remember brushing it off because I really should have read the Bitcoin white paper at the time. This is like in 2000. This is like the year Bitcoin was created. I think 2009 and 2010. And I wish I looked at it back then, but I brushed it off thinking it's just speculation, zero sum. You buy it, it could go down, it could go up. It didn't really interest me. I graduated from Berkeley and I moved to Taiwan. You can imagine during this time, this is 2000, this is after the financial crisis in the US, 2000. It lasted for quite a while. The US went through a pretty significant recession. And I decided, you know what, I'm not going to beg for a job in SF or stay in the Bay Area. I didn't really have anything lined up in terms of working for a startup. So I thought, and my wife is Taiwanese. So I was like, I'm going to go to Taiwan and study Chinese for a year. And I did that. And I decided to stay in Taiwan until today. So I've been in Taiwan for over 13 years now. I think it's 14. And yeah, it's been a long journey. And one of the first things I realized in Taipei was that it didn't have the same entrepreneurial spirit and community as in the Bay Area. Like Josh was saying, that community is really important to build special things and to be surrounded by the right people. And so I decided, you know what, if I'm going to stay in Taiwan, I'm going to make sure I'm surrounded by the right people. I'm going to create what's called the Taiwan Entrepreneur Club. And many of you, I don't know if you used meetup.com in the past, but this was a website where you could join meetups. And a lot of the meetups in Taipei at the time were actually tech related or like fitness related or such. And actually, I remember like when I launched Taiwan Entrepreneur Club, we started doing events. I did see a lot of Ethereum based events. And I was like, what's Ethereum? What is that? And I was like, oh, it's blockchain related. But I didn't really jump into it right away. Now, through Taiwan Entrepreneur Club, we started doing 2 events per month. Usually it was mostly networking events, but sometimes we had startup related like pitches or other things. And then I had a friend, his name was Ronan. He had been attending the events. He's from Israel. He was learning Chinese and he came up to me and he said, yo, you got to look into Ethereum. Because I guess he participated in the Ethereum ICO. And all of a sudden Ethereum went from like dollars, cents to $40. So all of a sudden he's through the roof, and he's saying, you're an entrepreneur, John, but you're not a true entrepreneur unless you really understand blockchain and Web3. It wasn't called Web3 back then. So I looked into it, and first thing I did was go on YouTube. I searched Ethereum, smart contracts, and most of the content was like Vitalik talking about it. And I was like, whoa, I do not understand this. I have a political economy background. So both Josh and I have some economics, but I have less of a technology background. And I really wanted to understand it. And so I watched hundreds, if not thousands of videos back then to really get into it. And I did that. And at one point I was like, you know what? Smart contracts are something that I actually gravitated towards smart contracts before I really understood distributed systems and cryptography and the importance of that. But smart contracts are like, oh, you could automate things in a trustless environment. That's really cool. And yeah, so I was like, it clicked, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to pivot Taiwan Entrepreneur Club to be completely focused on blockchain. So we did blockchain events, and I'll go a little bit faster. I realize we don't have so much time here, but we did throughout 2017, we did completely like blockchain related events. It was the ICO boom at that time. So everyone was so excited about the future of what you could build in blockchain. And it was an exciting time. And it was weird because I just bought Ethereum and I didn't participate in the ICOs. And I think I bought like a couple other, I realized that Ethereum's like, it's not scaling, and some other blockchains are coming up. So I did buy a couple other tokens. I don't know if you guys know AntShares or Neo. There were a bunch claiming to be more performant, etc. So I gravitated that. I started researching what's the next Ethereum. And Neo was funny. It was like the Ethereum of China. That was an interesting time. But anyway, yeah. And it's fast forward to when Josh left off in kind of January 2019. We met in San Francisco through a mutual friend. Josh pitched me. Oh, sorry, 2018, January 2018, and Josh pitched me a consensus algorithm that he said, hey, this could actually outperform Ethereum. And I really was attracted to Josh's tenacity and excitement, and him as an architect, as a software architect. And I was like, dude, I was thinking to myself, I got to work for this guy. So I went back to Taiwan, and we had multiple calls, and we decided to form a crypto lab in Taipei. And we built, the crypto lab was actually called Unity Chain. And the idea is that we would actually build a layer one with this algorithm that Josh conceptualized and created. And 2018 was not an easy year. If you can imagine, this was like the ICO boom was 2017, 2018 was a bust. It was really difficult for us to raise money at the time. We kept building. We built products and services for companies that had raised money but couldn't deliver on the product. So we survived that way. And then we worked with a publicly traded company in Taiwan called Advantech. Advantech was an IoT company. So we helped them actually connect their IoT devices. It was a cold chain logistics solution where this is our kind of first intro into kind of data meeting blockchain and vice versa. And we created this cold chain logistics solution with IoT devices to verify the temperature. And it was really interesting. Walmart China heard about this, and we got invited to Shenzhen to compete as a finalist in Shenzhen at this food safety supply chain solution competition. And so that was exciting for us. But then 2019 came about, and we saw the rise of DeFi. We saw DeFi summer, and we saw all these Oracle manipulation and bridging issues. And we were like, you know what? We're building this layer one. And we have this understanding of data, being able to verify off-chain data and on-chain and vice versa using oracles. Why don't we combine that to a fully vertically integrated L1 with native oracles? So we were building an L1 in the beginning, but then our sidetrack to understand oracles and securing data made us connect the two. And so we were thinking, you know what, instead of going to market as an L1, let's go to market as an oracle, and let's connect with all the L1s and then later L2s. And now we're on 80 plus different networks as Oracle. Once we're connected everywhere, let's flip the switch and tell everyone, hey, actually, we're a vertically integrated L1 with native oracles, and you can get that onto Supra. And so it's been a very long journey, and that's a very long intro, but I think it's an interesting story to connect Josh's story to mine and where we're at today.
Yeah. And guys, I must say this speaks volumes, right? Because it's a very intricate insight in your lives. And I think everybody in the space and everybody that will be listening to this on the replay, they will see that we're dealing with two really great builders and they have been entrepreneuring their whole lives. And I think there are a lot of similarities between your journey and a lot of people here in the space and in general in the crypto space, because a lot of people did read the white paper. They did hear about Bitcoin. They did hear about Ethereum, but very few really deep dives. And I think even less actually set out to build something that is better, may I say it, better than Ethereum, or at least
You can say that.
competitive
You can say that.
to a lot. Yeah, yeah. So I think this is really interesting. And you guys met up. You guys were developing the consensus algorithm. Joshua, what was the moment where you guys decided this is really interesting and we can actually take on existing projects, existing L1s, and we're just going to build this? What was the moment that you guys decided to, okay, we're going to go all in on Supra?
Can I say one thing first, Josh?
John, if you don't mind, I should correct myself. I want to make it clear that we love Ethereum, of course. You always have to be how much is due, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants. But yes, I do think what we're bringing to market has its competitive advantages in performance and beyond compared to them. Just want to mention that to clear the air. But yeah, John, please jump in.
I just want to set the stage with like where you can see me in 2018 in January and then like mid-January when we started our lab. Josh was very certain and he had this confidence that I was drawn to, and it gave me energy. But you can imagine when Josh is saying, hey, this consensus algorithm one day, we are going to outperform Ethereum. You can imagine from my perspective, not being in Josh's shoes and in his mind, feeling a little bit like, are you sure we could do that? In my mind, are you sure we could actually do that? And that came back in, over the months after that, because you can imagine, like, I'm not in Josh's kind of brain, his shoes, and I didn't have his confidence and tenacity. So you can imagine my situation where sometimes I was like, wow, how could we even say that? Like, how could we even say we'll be better than Ethereum? It's been a long journey and it's been proven over time. But yeah, I just want to say that quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't quite go as far as saying that we're better than Ethereum. They focus extremely on decentralization at the sacrifice of performance, right? It is a design decision, but I think what Supra has unveiled is the sweet spot. There is not just a trilemma, there's a quadrilemma. There is decentralization, security, scalability, and also latency, like throughput as well as latency. So a lot of folks in the Ethereum world didn't focus on latency at all. It was actually only until, including myself, by the way, I just knew that whatever we were doing in our designs will definitely be faster, especially in the world where Ethereum was proof of work, right? I was already thinking about proof of stake designs. But it wasn't until Solana came around where latency became more of a bigger topic. Now, the thing is, and also with AVAX, the thing is, it was a little bit definitely faster than Ethereum, sure. But also, finally, you start to learn about what's actually real finality. So 500 millisecond block production is not finality. Solana's proven history, for example, is still a probabilistic protocol, and you technically need to wait 32 blocks. So we're talking about 10 to 12 seconds before you have finality. So that is actually relatively slow. I know it's surprising here, but I'd use Solana to be slow. And of course, Ethereum to be slower. But yeah, there are a lot of struggles. It's been a 7-year journey. Frankly, if I knew how hard it was, it's very typical, right? If I actually knew how hard it would be, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I was like, oh, yeah. And I really did not think it would take 7 years. I thought it would take maximum 4.
What was the biggest challenge, Josh, would you say? You guys have been building Supra to a very extensive level. There's a lot of technology. There is a lot of first-time technology being combined. What would you say was the biggest challenge in your journey so far?
There's many. Just understanding. I don't really come from a cryptography background directly. I don't come from a distributed compute background directly. And I'm not the best programmer either. Of course, I've been doing this since I was 12, but these things evolve very rapidly. So I would say the technical part was very tedious and cumbersome. And back in the day, John and I would have these stacks of white papers that we actually read. And it was like going to university. And in fact, now I'll talk about this a bit more. When we eventually actually got like cryptography celebrities to mentor us, it was like actually going to university. And I'm not talking about just underground, I'm talking like PhD level, right? So even though I was in my 30s by then, it was very challenging on a technical front. And then, of course, these other parts. There's the human coordination problem. There's raising money, keeping the lights on. There's co-founder problems. John and I have gone through a lot. Luckily, we went through the hardest part, I would say, within the first 2 years. And then since then, it's been easier. There's so many challenges. It's understanding technology, keeping it on top of the latest updates and trends and also innovations. And then making sure you keep the lights on, and then growing the team and human coordination, management, as well as continue to innovate and also just dealing with human related dynamics. I'm not the easiest person to work with because I'm so convinced in my mind, I'm convinced from very empirical data and first principles that this will work. But you can't expect everyone to see that, especially if I can't express it really well and I cannot formally verify it, which our teams have, by the way, later done. So that was a challenge because you can also have folks that are gung-ho because it sounds like you're going to make a lot of money for them. And then when it's taking longer than they expect, it happens, they turn on you. And then it's not their fault. It's just they have different time frames. And maybe if I was Elon Musk, I would have done this in 6 years instead of 7. The point, though, is to express how difficult it is. This has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I can fully understand that. I can fully understand that. I think it also takes great leadership to acknowledge that you can't do it yourself or that other people are better at this at this particular part of building up the company. But there is also the thing of raising a company, coming up with a concept, being visionary as a co-founding duo, but then also being able to really execute that to the highest level. And I think that whilst we're talking to the both of you, I've gotten to know the Supra team as a very broad, very skilled, and very knowledgeable team that consists of at least 100 people that are really building top-notch innovations. And I've also seen that you guys were able to build a culture where people are professional, but they're also pushing each other to the max. And I think that is a true achievement that the entire Supra team has been realizing together and have been building throughout this entire period. And I also believe that it is not a given for anybody to lead a team of 100 people, but also manage a company that's doing innovation, doing a lot of R&D, combining new technologies, building and surviving in an ecosystem that has really strong bulls and really hard, bearish winters. Thinking about all of that, we've talked a little bit about who you are, what were the challenges, what are the things that you are most proud of building Supra and where we are today?
Actually, I've heard quite a bit. For us, there's something that I realized, I don't remember if we said this, but it's so important to have intellectual humility. So you want to have strong opinions loosely held. So if you believe fundamentally this is correct, you don't just put your flag in there, say forever this is correct. If you ever hear a better idea, the most efficient way to iterate and evolve, which includes in human species, but also is in startups, etc., is to have intellectual humility. So strong opinions when you hear your ideas, you got to stick with your guns. But if you hear a better idea, you got to be able to let go of your bias and your point of view. Because what do you focus on? You should be focused on not I got to be right. You have to focus on the ultimate end goal, right? And what is ultimately going to get you there is to listen to others' ideas. So we had to actually, this is a great standard, where actually you suggested something a little bit off the cuff, and I was like, no, we're not doing this, right? And then we decided we would banter back and forth across many folks, and it was like we came back to the original idea. I was like, yeah, actually, you're right. Okay, that is actually an example today where that's our superpower, is that we can go into this with our preconceived notions, hear an idea that initially sounds like, nah, it's not going to work, and then actually change your framework and perspective if you actually do see something better. and to do it quickly, without ego, without embarrassment, and say, oh, actually, I was wrong. Let's continue. That was actually a really good idea, and to pay homage where homage is due. That is probably the secret sauce in super culture. And because I know that if we continue to do that, we'll just constantly iterate step by step. No matter where the idea comes from, if it's a better idea, we should adopt it in the singularity. And that formula just there basically means if you just don't stop doing that, you will always achieve excellence. It just takes time, but you'll get there. This is a brute force way to do it. You want to do iterative processes here and there, and occasionally have this conceptual leap, and then continue the iterative A to B testing, etc., and the occasional conceptual leap. But you got to keep on growing. So tenacity is really important, but ultimately, I think the most important thing is intellectual humility. And I'm actually did get a scholarship to study economics, almost an entire full ride at a private school in New Jersey, and I dropped out to play poker. And so I actually didn't complete my education. Now somehow, and we'll talk about this eventually, like how do we even assemble such a stellar team? Part of it was I think I had always, created a space, not only for myself, I led from example, where we could let someone that wanted to vocalize a thing to share their point of view. And then, in fact, if they are right, we do that. It doesn't matter if it came from me or if it came from a janitor. I don't care. I'm willing to clean the toilets as well. And ultimately, our culture, I think, is strong and it's going to get stronger. We'll survive any situation as long as we have that notion of intellectual humility.
I always think extracted on me a little bit, but yeah, I was truly impressed about this answer because we're talking about one of the biggest technology companies in the space with a lot of innovation going on, a lot of very bright people. Every day we talk about technology, and the answer that we're getting is we've built and fostered a culture that drives excellence and innovation. And I think this is what makes a company very strong. And I think this is a real differentiator from projects that are just building in a space and projects that are actually trying to grow and be better and bigger each and every day that they pass on. I really appreciate that insight. John, also for you the question, what are you most proud of today about the journey in the last 6 years? Is that potentially the release of some really cool products that we recently unveiled, or is that something else? Tell us.
Sure, definitely. I will have to say, Josh did touch briefly on tenacity. If you've been in Web3 space, if you had a company, a startup since 2017 or later, you experience bull and bear markets, which have not been easy. And not only that, you experience black swan events, Terra Luna, FTX crashing. And you experience, Josh said, the timelines for building an L1 might be a little bit longer than people expect. It's not a copy paste cookie cutter L2 where we can deploy in 8 months. And so expectations are for investors and community and everyone is always this, you could do this quickly and launch a token and we all are, happy about that. We had to go through that time period and go through those bear markets. And that was really difficult. And I think the tenacity is important, not just from Josh and I, but from the team at whole. A lot of the team members that have stuck it through, we have to give credit to, because I'm sure they weren't in our shoes. They weren't in my shoes or Josh's shoes to fully understand if we were going to survive even. You can imagine with FTX crashing and all the liquidity in the space, all the investment all of a sudden pausing. It was a difficult time. And just really quickly, I'll just say that I definitely agree with some of the tenacity from our whole team and also the faith that they had in Josh and myself and our leadership team to take us through that difficult time period. And yeah, from the technology point of view, the fact that we've been able to go from deploying oracles to 80 plus different networks to getting our L1 to mainnet soon. And in the fact that we've been able to vertically integrate these services and create a better product for users and developers is, I think our whole team should be proud of that. The fact that our research team has many papers that have been accepted to top academic journals is it's just great to see. And I think it's something, I know it's something that our team should be really proud of. And also, Josh came up with this concept called containers a couple of years ago. And containers are a way to have your own dedicated block space within the L1 itself. Dedicated block space, dedicated compute space. You have your own token and your own ecosystem. It's like having L2. But at the time, we didn't really think, and we didn't have a way, our research didn't really know a way for those containers to be composable, meaning you would still need, within the L1 and having these different compute spaces, you would still need individual bridging between each container. And we thought, that's not really vertical integration, is it? So that's not interesting to us. And so we didn't shelve it. We're still building the L1. We needed to ship. We needed to get the mainnet. But then, like 6 months ago, our research team said, hey, you know what? We found a way to make containers composable. All containers on Supra can have their own token, they have their own ecosystem. They can deploy apps in their ecosystem, and they can all use their token as gas. And all of a sudden, these projects can have revenue day one, but also each of these containers can communicate with the whole network with complete composability and shared liquidity. So that is definitely something that once our BD team was the first to jump up and say, whoa, this is huge. You know how everyone's launching an L2 these days? You know why they're doing that? They want to build their own economy. They want their own compute space, but no one wants the fractured liquidity and fractured composability. It's retarded. No one wants that. And containers solve that problem. And so that's, I think, probably beyond the tenacity, that's the top of my something that I'm proud with our research team. I'm proud of Josh. And I'm so happy that this is like an additional unique selling point that's going to solve so many real problems in our space in Web3, because everyone's talking about L2 this, L2 that, God forbid L3s, right? It's all fracturing and destroying the beauty of blockchain systems, which is composability. If you don't know the beauty of composability, please research it, check it out. But it's really the ability for systems to be able to communicate in a very efficient manner. And of course, shared liquidity is also a part of that. So yeah, containers, if you don't know about it, we have so much information about that we're pouring out. We have a great permissionless talk. We are the title sponsors and speakers at Permissionless. And we have great content on our website as well. So please, check out containers, because that's something that we can really be proud of.
And
Yeah, I fully agree. And I also think that
Senator, if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt the flow. I have to just add one more really interesting fact about this approach.
Yeah.
It's the following. So great container, you can have your own token. You can use it as a gas token on the layer one itself. You can price the gas fee. So a transaction might cost half a penny. You can think this transaction in this container costs 5 cents. And that's a 10x markup, not 10%, 10 times markup. And that difference is a container's revenue. So the application layer on Supra, we believe, will be earning a lot of the value and collecting a lot of value. Now, that said, we also believe that containers are strictly better than layer 2 subnets, parachains, subnets, layer 3s, etc., because the thing you can get with Supra is vertical integration. You can have access to or price sheet data block by block. You get that immediately. You can have on-chain randomness immediately. You can have chain communication coming very soon and automation coming soon. Both of them are actually very close. Now, if you launch a layer 2, you still have to integrate with a bridge, and it's going to cost you $250 to $3 million. Okay, and then $250,000 to $3 million, and then you're going to integrate with the on-chain randomness service, price feed service, which can run into millions if you're working with the wrong partners, and then lastly, automation service. Basically, it turns out even launching a layer 2 is going to run you $10 million. But imagine if you can deploy a container, have access to these value-added services, because Supra has vertically integrated multiple types of verifiable compute on one stack, and you can launch it with like less than $1,000, right? 10 million versus 1,000. That's something that we're so excited to bring to market. It'll take us a little bit more time, of course, but we're doing it very soon and we're working on it. The designs are virtually done and prototypes are being built. for this, and we hope we can roll this out, do this thing here.
Yeah. And one more thing, imagine this, you deploy, it costs you $1,000, let's say a month to have a container. But since your gas token is priced at a certain amount above what the Supra token is priced, let's just say you're making 5 cents on every single transaction. That's really potential revenue on day one, right? Or in the first month. Your application actually can start capturing a lot of value and be profitable on day one. And so that's the goal here, to have this fully vertically integrated infrastructure for applications to not have to focus on the infra, but they can focus on how to build their app, build their audience, and focus on users, because they're then now able to make profit off of the transactions and from their users. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I fully agree, guys. This technology and this notion of containers is a truly impressive technology. And not only is it impressive technology, it allows builders to really easily build their own L2, their own dApp chain, and really bring their applications to life while thinking about the business model. So I appreciate you guys talking about this. And we're definitely going to touch more on this because there are a couple of more segments. I know that we're going to talk about containers with some of the projects that are already building on Supra, some really interesting projects. I met a couple of them. I'm really impressed by their technology and their tenacity as a trending word that we use in this part of the Supra space. I would like to thank Joshua and John for their openness, their givingness, and their willingness to answer basically any question. And I think we're going to hand over the mic back to James to make sure that we start talking about some of the developments on Supra around gaming.